Does Sword Online Last Recollection only take place in Dark Territory? Is there gonna be an extensive story DLC like before? Is the accuracy stat as bad as it was back in Lycoris? And is there even fishing in this game? Welcome back SAO survivors, it's me Gamerturk, and yesterday we had a lengthy Q&A session with the SAO Gameverse lead Futami-P and Last Recollection lead Ueno-P, and we had a bunch of interesting and a bunch of, well, equally uninteresting questions answered, so let's get into them in order. You can use the chapters feature to skip to questions you personally find more interesting than others. And while we're on that aspect, and consider this video to be sponsored by my Amazon affiliate link for Sword Online Volume 27 United Ring 6. Coincidentally, the release of the book is exactly a month away now, August 22nd, so for a timely delivery, make sure to pre-order your copy before it is too late, especially now that we're stuck with Amazon rather than having book depository around. First question was that the launch screen of Illustration Lycoris being in the Rulit Forest where Kirito woke up. Last Recollection, on the other hand, is supposed to be a story about the Dark Territory, but the launch screen is of a vibrant place. Where is that place? And as we expected, the answer was that while the main campaign is about the Dark Territory in general, it would not be starting there. You know, makes sense, but a little bit of a cop-out answer if you ask me. I feel like there'll be a couple of maps at least in the Human Empire, maybe, you know, one per quadrant or something like that, just to have unique biospheres. And this answer was a bit too much on the gotta keep things under wraps. If you remember my earlier videos, my main concern about Last Recollection, about a predominantly Dark Territory based game, would visually feel extremely stale due to the desolate nature of the place as well as the constantly red sky. I genuinely cannot imagine them only having a starting map in the Human Empire, and I absolutely expect more maps in the Human Empire as well. I also would not be surprised that Centauria returns as a hub. After all, the game begins a ways before War of Underworld, with Shasta's peace offering being there, even, you know, the catalyst for Dorothy's travels to the Human Empire. So, Centauria still being used as a main base before migrating to the Great Eastern Gate is highly likely in my opinion. Next question was about the Gameverse Heroines, asking about their Wayfarer personas in Lycoris, and if there's going to be a proper narrative connection with Last Recollection on this front. I imagine it was already implied with the, you know, quote-unquote narrative connection that they would be arriving as their real personas in Last Recollection, you know, asking about how that switch will take place story-wise, but they absolutely dodged that question by glossing over the implication. From what I can see, they simply stated that the characters will be appearing as their real selves in Last Recollection and did not comment on the story implications. I feel like that was one of the more interesting questions that can be asked, but to a certain extent, I do understand wanting to gloss over that implied question solely due to story reasons. I personally expect them to start off as Wayfarers, but switch into their real personas midway through War of Underworld when everyone and their grandmothers start diving into Project Alicization, which is where the game is likely going to take off, with the previous portions being more of a Chapter 1 of sorts, akin to a tutorial or getting, you know, used to the game in general, similar to how we had that Chapter 1, huge Chapter 1 in Lycoris. Hopefully it's gonna be a little bit shorter this time around. Next question was about the Dark Territory characters like Shasta, Lipia, Iskahn or D.I.L becoming playable. They really did not want to answer this question either, calling it a secret for now, but they also said they thought a lot about their preferred weapons to fit the setting. That one seemingly referring to D.I.L using a whip. I feel like that answer alone is clear enough of a, yeah, they'll be playable alright. Why would they try to give D.I.L a matching enough of a weapon type if they had no intentions of making her playable in the first place? They probably know how useless Sacred Arts only characters are based on Selka and Lycoris, so they wanted to make D.I.L a properly usable character for players. And we also know she has character events attached, you know, they shared the gallery images before, which means she is tied to the friendship ranks given to playable party members. If she wasn't playable and only appeared as a boss, they could easily make her something like Quinella in Lycoris, a bunch of custom special attacks and not a traditional weapon type. Speaking of friendship levels, the next question is whether they exist and how to increase them efficiently. Yeah, I got a bit ahead of myself with the previous answer, but yes, there are friendship ranks as usual, and the main tip to increase them is praising the actions of your partners in combat and attacking a common enemy together. Pretty standard for SAO games, it's been like that for a couple games now, and if you are a more involved player, remember the behavior patterns and stuff are a thing in SAO games. It has been a thing as far back as Hollow Realization, as far back as I can remember, if not Hollow Fragment, I'm not so sure about that one, that they keep reintroducing the mechanic as if it's a brand new feature, so don't just mindlessly praise everything they do. The feature is used for conditioning them into maintaining certain behavioral patterns, so spamming praises, it can mess up with that. Be mindful of that one on that front. The next question was actually quite clever, and so was the answer. People realized the mentions of levels were gone from the game entirely and instead replaced with ranks. When asked about this, Futami and Ueno replied that as the game was a direct continuation of Lycoris, it would feel extremely weird if Kirito and everyone suddenly reverted back to level 1 with no apparent reason. So instead of doing that, they just removed the mention of levels and replaced it with ranks. However, it's also a bit of a dodgy answer as well, because if you gave the semantics part of it so much thought, I will be keeping my eyes peeled for whether we'll have all the skills unlocked from the get-go or not, which from a gameplay perspective would remove a lot of progression feeling from the game, Sometimes thinking too much in detail can cause more problems to arise, and I'm interested to see how they will tackle these. If we have more skills than what we had in Lycoris, which we definitely do, we have seen quite a bit of new skills in previews and trailers. What they can do is keep the skills we had back in Lycoris completely unlocked, but make us unlock the new skills that were introduced with Last Recollection as a form of new progression, so to say, to these characters. That would kinda make sense. Next one. There were some concerns about the action game aspect of Lycoris and how the camera interacted with a lot of things in that gameplay. I remember some skills of the dual blades just yanking the camera back and forth, which they disabled later down the line with an update. This fan was hoping Last Recollection to be a little bit more user-friendly on that aspect and gave people the choice instead. And the answer was, it was quite good, that there are a lot of settings that the player can now adjust, including a variety of camera options, so hopefully you can find a setting that suits you personally better this time around. Next question was about Unison Attacks, whether they are locked to 2 characters or can be done with 3 or 4 characters together with more unique interactions, which Unison Attacks, I don't think they are allied attacks. Allied attacks existed in Lycoris as well as previous games too, actually, in different mechanics. Basically, you fill your incarnate gauge and pick allied attack, and all 4 characters will sequentially do a strong attack. The Unison Attack, however, or whatever it's gonna be called in English, seems to be this special additional cut-in feature featuring 2 characters doing an allied attack, where 2 characters will do their action chains together as a duo. And no, the answer was that these are locked to be for duos, and that there are plenty of Unison Attacks that do not feature Kirito. This next one was a true softball question. Are we gonna be able to customize sword skill and battle skill palettes? Yes we will. Same as how we were able to since a decade ago. I don't even know who asked this question and why they chose to answer it. That's kind of been a standard for 10 years now. Next question, is there gonna be a transmog feature for weapons, as in use a weapon for its functionality in terms of powerful stats while using another weapon over it as a visual skin? And the answer is yes, you can use weapons as skins only for its visuals, so you won't need to sacrifice a weapon power just for the looks of another. As usual, these are just within weapon categories, so you cannot do something like using a mace as a skin for a one-handed sword. You have to pick a one-handed sword to use as a skin for another one-handed sword. Pretty standard stuff. But the potential for cubes are still not being touched upon. You can choose to be hopeful that it means there won't be any actual cubes in Last Recollection, or you can be cynical like me and remember how they never mentioned cubes until late development of Lycoris and suddenly implemented them half-heartedly because they were mandated from higher up, you know? Always keep these things in mind. Next question, the age-old mystery that requires people to validate with personal experimenting in every single SAO game because it's never properly communicated to the player. Does increasing the game difficulty not only increase the drops from monsters but also quests as well? And the answer is yes, it does. If you want better equipment and to challenge yourself in game, make sure to increase the difficulty, was their answer. So not only will the monsters drop better things if you increase the difficulty, but your quest rewards are planned to be better as well from the looks of it, which is pretty neat. That may actually end up being a good reason to play the main campaign on a harder difficulty, but the viability of that will depend on the end game loop itself, which this game too will have inevitably, like every other SAO game. You know, the feeling of, am I just chasing better gear to defeat stronger sponges, to get better gear to defeat even stronger sponges, in a meaningless hamster wheel that does not even hide the fact that it's a meaningless hamster wheel? Or is there gonna be content that actually feels good, that is harder? Because this aspect is one of Akureha's biggest weaknesses. They are generally quite bad at hiding that the increase of difficulty is just for the sake of increased difficulty because they know it keeps the very loud 0.1% hardcore players occupied for years without having to create new maps, new enemies, new engaging content for normal players. Personally, I still think the defense objective-based Sacrament Dungeons from Hollow Realization was the closest Akureha got to engaging and interesting content on this front. Everything else has just been turn off your brain, grind a lot for OP weapons, so you can mindlessly skill spam even stronger enemies. There's nothing inherently bad with a hamster wheel. All games do run on hamster wheels at their core, but the satisfaction is usually tied to how well you can hide the hamster wheel aspect under meaningful, engaging feeling paint job. And Akureha, at some point you guys need to do a little bit better than just bigger enemies with more health. Okay, I talked a bit too much on that one. What's the max rank, read level, in Last Recollection? At launch, it is planned to be 50, which is the same as Lycoris. The way they state at launch makes it seem like it will get increased with more content, but there's a little bit more to be said on that topic with another question later down the line, so stay tuned. They also tease that something may happen when you reach rank 50, so we'll be keeping our eyes peeled for that, I guess. Alright, huge topic here. A fan raised their concerns as to how hitting and slashing did not feel very satisfying back in Lycoris and asked if this was improved in Last Recollection. They answered with making slashing sounds on stream, which seems to show their confidence that things have improved, but I'll be perfectly honest. In the preview footages that we have received of the 10-minute Dark Territory demo, not only does it not feel improved at all, but actually does kinda feel worse due to the 60 FPS making all the movement even smoother and making the lack of proper impact frames or heavy staggers all the more obvious. I truly do hope there are things we just haven't seen implemented yet publicly, and it's not just, oh, we added a lot more VFX, the same VFX that we actually removed from Lycoris due to performance constraints, by the way. You know, adding more VFX, that would be kinda bad timing just when the excessive use of VFX was being pulled into question a lot lately on SAO. You know, you can learn more about that in this video of mine. I'll save you the lecture, link in description and on the top right icon. These things, the feeling of hits and slashes, it's an incredibly delicate thing in games. So much work is put into these things that last less than half a second, but little stronger impact frames or stagger animation they do go a long way into making your game feel more engaging. You know, maybe additionally you can utilize DualSense controller a bit more on PS5, you know, the triggers and haptic feedback and things like that. Everything being buttery smooth, it's just a terrible choice in an action game. And no, gamers TM, there's more nuance to frame rate than higher is better. Anyways, moving on to another huge topic, a fan asked whether there had been any adjustments made to the accuracy stat compared to Illustration Lycoris, probably because it was such an absurd and restrictive mechanic that it caused the majority of players to drop out of the game and created an extremely elitist 0.1% hardcore community with the mantra of don't learn, just follow exactly as I do. Lo and behold, accuracy is gone. In Last Recollection there is no concept of hit or miss, and the miss notation that appeared in one of the previews was an error, so there you go. You no longer need to jack up on accuracy just to be able to touch some enemies while sacrificing power elsewhere for no apparent reason than just wanting to actually touch an enemy. You can now just enjoy the game how you want. I still expect them to use level differences to create a power disadvantage, you know, in terms of attack and defense, but as long as accuracy is gone, it should at least feel fair and not aggravating. Another question was that fans, when playing the preview demos at expos, they found it hard to fill the allied gauge during those previews and asked for tips on how to fill it. Well, the tip was basically the same as before. Do perfect dodges and praise your party members. That will be increasing your gauge. Now it is time for some truly devastating news. A fan asked if there was going to be any fishing in the Dark Territory. You know, Dark Territory is desolate, barely any life can exist on its own, etc. and all that kind of jazz. But the answer ended up a lot more devastating than anyone could probably expect. Not only is it in Dark Territory that there is no fishing, but fishing outright does not exist in Last Recollection as a game. Press F to pay respect to the fish, everyone, please. Right now, I want you to take a moment to go down to the comments and tell me how much you will miss fishing in Last Recollection. Let's all mourn the loss of the fish together in the comments. And while you're scrolling back up to the video, do hit that like button on your way up. But jokes aside, the fishing is gone, but they did assure the fans that there'd be other field activities that they can enjoy in Last Recollection. I am definitely not gonna miss the fish. Not every RPG is supposed to have fishing just for the sake of fishing. Next question put a smile on my face. It seems Japanese fans are also a bit worried as to how the Fatal Bullet heroines, who are technically our OC circle of friends, will be in Last Recollection. They asked for clarification as to how Kureha, Zeliska and Itsuki will be handled, as they are not quote-unquote Kirito's heroines. Futami and Ueno said that they are handling them with great care and hope you look forward to it. Pretty standard response, to be honest. Not much you can say to such a question. We'll have to wait and see how their stories and interactions will turn out when the game is released. Now, by far the most interesting question, saved for the last in the stream. We already have the heroine DLCs, which are just a story reasoning for bed scenes from the looks of it, that they are now locked behind an additional paywall. But those DLCs, they're not exactly a story sequel, so naturally that topic did receive a question. Is there gonna be any DLC aside from the heroines? Clearly looking to see whether there is anything beyond Last Recollection main campaign for the story of the Gameverse. The answer is, in my opinion, pretty much dodging the question completely, saying there is nothing planned at the moment, but there may be some free updates. Now, the reason why I say they are dodging the question is because I understand that they cannot answer this question to begin with. Announcing future plans is likely not in their hands, and let's be honest, a lot was said for previous games in ways to maximize the current active project's interest. Remember how Fatal Bullet suddenly received a 4th DLC when there was supposed to be nothing? After that, Lycoris was supposed to be the final SAO game, which ended up not being correct. The game ended in a way that not only did not give a conclusive ending to the series, but literally left every single problem facing Underworld hanging and instead introduced a new character out of nowhere, injected into the past, who is still not officially announced for Last Recollection, mind you. The journey was supposed to be over with Matricaria. Even Futami-san said a lot of things and tweeted a lot of things, only to quickly backtrack and start vaguely hinting at the fact that it may not be the end of the story. Probably got a warning from higher-ups there with the supposedly conclusive tweets. Feeling sorry about them a bit on that front. Now, large-scale DLC production, it does take a long amount of time. If there are large-scale DLC plans with the game now releasing in October, they surely would have plans internally, even have the scenarios probably written and work starting to begin on their pre-production or production, as the base game is literally just 3 months away from release and entering its final phases of development on its own. So what we're left with is, if they don't have plans, they don't have plans, and that's what they say. If they have plans, they are already in the works, but they cannot share those plans just yet, because they want to sell the current pass and current DLCs and the current game, because that is a bit further away for now. So I wouldn't even take that statement with a mountain of salt. I'll just ask like the question wasn't even asked. They wouldn't be allowed to reveal or even hint at anything of that sort unless approved from higher-ups, and it is unreasonable of us, the players, to assume the developers can share those plans to begin with. They simply can't. But in my opinion, SAO is too much of a cash cow to provide a conclusive ending to such a story anyways. They, of course, can respect Futami's wish to end the Gameverse by not making a sequel DLC, you know, making sure War of Underworld ends in a fully conclusive way, but they can also do that with something like Moon Cradle as a DLC and then a Black Emperor storyline as a DLC focusing on Alderès Vestarath. The Rebellion attempt lasted decades after all, or, you know, who cares about the main series? Unitoloring is way too far off to capitalize properly on anyways, so they can just do the acceleration and then continue off into the 200 years later Underworld story in a completely new game without touching the Unitoloring side of it. There's just way too much potential, and PR on this front is just not to be believed at all. PR is just the art of doing the best you can with information you are allowed to share in the now. And that's what they're doing on this topic. It's what they have been doing for the better part of the decade. That's just what the job entails. So, you know, always approach PR statements with a mountain of salt, especially on things like this. But that's it for the dev Q&A. Thank you very much for watching, and a huge thanks to Futami-P and Ueno-P for the answers to the questions. I'll see you all in the next one. There's gonna be another Q&A show soon, so subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to like and comment, and as always, stay cool.